mainstream theology today is jihadism. Mainstream theology today is Islamism. If you want to understand what is even Islamism or jihadism, it's, we are talking about mainstream theology, because mainstream theology is literalist, the literalist approach to the theology, to the Quran and to the Hadith. You have to read it in a certain way and you can't change it and so on. It's God's Quran, is God's words, even though you can read it without the Hadith. It doesn't make that much sense anyway. So change it, please change it so it makes sense, at least, for logical thinking people. Understanding 7th of October, it is very important that we understand that there is a mainstream theology within Islam. It's mainstream theology within Islam to want the Jews. And I was very confused because I'm from Iran, and I didn't believe that, that this was the mainstream theology within the Shia version of, the Islamic Republic's version, because there are a lot of Jews living in Iran. How can that be? And they have always told, when I was living in Iran, when I was in school in Iran, they would always tell us, we don't have a problem with Jews. Jews are our friends, our neighbors, our brothers and sisters. They live here. It's not about their religion. It's about Israel. Our hatred of Israel has nothing to do with the Jews. But then when I was researching for my book about this subject of the Hadith, about the last hour, I was reading theology sites and also the Iranian Hausa site, which is the state theology site of the Iranian Islamic Republic. And as all of the other sites, I read with my own eyes in Farsi. They explained, yes, eventually the last hour, it will be that we have to unalive these people because, that's our religion. But they can convert, it doesn't need to go down that way. They can convert. And this is, of course, a genocidal, and no matter how you want to look at it, it's genocidal towards the Jews. Probably have to edit this and censor some of the things that I want you to know about the religion of Islam, because of the sensitivity and of social media, and the fact that Islamists will report any criticism. So that is our reality in 2024. I'm living in a Western free country. And please do understand that if you're living in a Western country, you have your freedoms, and it's only because of heroes like the ones who died protecting civilians in Israel on 7th of October, and who have been fighting for their freedom and for their state, the only Jewish state in the world, where 20% are Arabs, Muslim background Arabs, who are living there side by side with Israelis of Jewish heritage, and they have the equal rights. And I met a lot of Muslims living in Israel, Israeli Muslims, and they told us, there was a woman, she told us, as an Arab woman, I can't live in any other Arab countries and have the freedoms and rights that I have here in Israel. So I do appreciate my freedoms. And of course, Israel is not perfect, she said, and a lot of Muslims said, Israel is not perfect, mistakes do happen and we can do better, but my home country is Israel. This is what I know, this is where I was born. this is where I was brought up, and this is the country that I believe in. And this is a needed conversation globally. And yes, there is a difference between Islamists and Muslims, but Islamism is not a thing. Jihadism is not a thing. Islam is a thing. Islamists are a thing. Jihadists are a thing. But Islamism and Jihadism are really, just not talking about the issue at hand. And it is a very, I want to be very respectful when I talk about these issues, because I want everybody to know that criticism of Islam is not criticism of all Muslims. Muslims are different. You have many different types of Muslims, and you also do have different types of Islam. You do have reform imams and reform Muslims trying to modernize and reform their religion. And you have a lot of different types of Muslims who individually have reformed their religion, who tell me, I don't practice Islam that way. It's not the way you think. We don't believe in jihadists. We don't believe in jihad. We don't believe in slavery. We don't believe in kuffar, or killing infidels, or killing apostates, and so on. And I tell them, I do believe you. I know you. You're part of my family, because I'm from a Muslim family. I was born and raised when I came to Denmark when I was 9. I've gone back to Iran, traveled back to Iran. I've done journalism, interviewed a lot of people in Iran. I've gotten to know the country, and at one point I was living there for 5 months. When I was very young, I was 20. So I got to know my country as an adult, and I know that there are many Muslims who don't believe in jihadists, in jihad, in killing infidels and so on. But the problem is, and I tell them, you have modernized, reform your religion inside your house privately. But the problem is, we're talking about an organized religion, and your Islam is going to die with you. I'm sorry to say this, but we're talking about an organized religion that for 1400 years have had problems, and still to this day has problems. And if we want to change that, we can't just rely on people changing it privately in their own homes, because this is not about what you do in a private space. Because, you can be free living in Lebanon. You can be a free Muslim. You see what happens then. We saw what happened in Iran. At generation and 2, not even can change everything, because these Islamists will use this theology against any progress, right? So we have to understand that reforming religion is a public thing. It's not a private thing, because if it's happening in the private, and it is happening in the private homes of many, many millions of Muslims in this world, but it doesn't matter as long as the Islamists have the right to tell you what your religion is. And they have, the theology, they have their websites, they have their mosques. This is a public platform. You have to change it on a public platform. This is an organized religion. And if you want to change this religion, it needs to be with activism, with theology, with politics, with websites and mosques that is an alternative to what is being preached in the mosques. And this is the problem. You can't have open discussions about Islam, and the Islamists are very smart. They know this. They know that open discussions about, open conversations, honest conversations about Islam would kill the mainstream religion that they believe in, because people would start asking questions and they don't have any of the answers. And this is also why we see the lies. When you see Hamas saying that they don't believe in terrorism, they're not terrorists, they didn't kill innocent civilians, and then you ask them about the Nova Festival, and you ask them about the footage that the Hamas terrorists filmed themselves, and they're like, they have like 10 different answers for you, and it's not logical. It's because they're gaslighting the whole world. They're gaslighting us, and they want us to just sit there and say, we understand. It's a religion of peace that kills infidels. Yeah, that makes sense. No, start asking questions. Ask your Muslim friends questions, and do it in a loving, open discussion. And when I say loving, I don't want you to be apologetic about it, because we have to be done with being apologetic.